welcome back to the GSMC Baseball Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Sam Menzie, and let's get into the show. We're going to be talking about 4 segments today. The first segment we will be talking about is Dylan Cease and the blockbuster trade that is sending him to the San Diego Padres. The next topic we will be talking about is Devin Williams and the injury he suffered, leading him to be out for a good amount of time this season. Then we'll be talking about Adam Duvall and him going back to the Atlanta Braves. And finally, ending it off with our 4th segment, news around the league. Before we do that, I'd like to ask you to please like and follow the show. We do get a number of questions from viewers, so to ensure that your question does get read in the air, please use the link gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help the show, and it really does mean a lot. So thank you so much for that. And let's get straight into the show here. So the first segment we'll be talking about today is obviously Dylan Cease and the blockbuster trade that's sending him to the San Diego Padres. Now, this wasn't exactly a surprise to me that he was getting traded. If you watched the show yesterday, I had a whole segment dedicated to Dylan Cease and the trade rumors that he could be traded relatively soon. I didn't expect it to be a few hours after I uploaded that segment. But it was, and it happened relatively soon after we heard some rumors going around. I predicted him to go to the Texas Rangers. He did not, obviously. Everyone was kind of shocked that he went to the Padres as a team that was barely even mentioned in the Cease talks. But, as we've seen over the past few years now, AJ Preller knows how to get this stuff done. He knows how to get the players he wants. He's made so many blockbuster trades, and this is just another one of them in his arsenal. We learned that the 2 finalists for Cease were the Rangers and the San Francisco Giants. Now, the Rangers are not a surprise here, as yesterday I talked about them being the team I thought would end up doing the deal for Cease. So them ending up as one of the finalists in the trade talks is not really a surprise to me. It is a surprise to me that the Giants were one of them. They were not really mentioned in Cease ever, if at all. So for them to be mentioned as one of the finalists, as I believe John Heyman said, that's pretty surprising to me. That's something I really didn't expect. So definitely that's something to look out for in the future, that they could add another veteran pitcher. My thoughts on the White Sox winning the trade talks and being the ones to get him. I mean, wow, just AJ Preller, man, he gets it done. Like, you could say a lot about him. You could say he runs his team like an MLB The Show team, which is true. You can say he's way too aggressive, which is probably true. You can say, he thinks everything's fantasy baseball, probably true. But he knows how to get his stars. And one thing about him is he has his eyes on a player, he gets them. I mean, Juan Soto, Joe Musgrove, Yu Darvish, Manny Machado, keep going, Ha-Sung Kim. There's so many other guys he's also acquired as the GM of the Padres, guys he's had his eye on, and he's gotten superstars for the Padres. Now, obviously, it hasn't amounted to a world championship yet as he would like it to, but he's hoping that eventually it can, and eventually everything comes together, and he ends up winning the World Series, as is the plan. Just thoughts on the Padres now with Cease. Obviously this helps them a lot. There's no way around that. I think the Padres have always had a really good hitting core, even after trading Soto and Trent Grisham. Just the sheer amount of talent they have with guys like Jake Cronenworth, who did have a talented season last year, but still, I think is going to bounce back and has a great track record. Of course, Ha-Sung Kim, one of the better second basemen in baseball. Manny Machado, superstar. Fernando Tatis, superstar. Xander Bogaerts, great player. By the way, when I said Ha-Sung Kim was a second baseman, I meant shortstop. He switched shortstop this year, so that was my fault. But, they've had such an amazing hitting core, even after losing Soto. And I think the only problem was with the pitching, and that's why they focus on pitching with the Soto trade, getting guys like Michael King, like Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, Drew Thorpe, who obviously is not on the team anymore. We'll talk about that very soon, don't worry. I think that's why they prioritized it, because they always knew they needed pitching. And I think Preller reaffirmed that belief after making the trade for Cease. Cease is a guy we knew all offseason was going to get traded eventually. We thought it was going to be in the offseason. I kind of thought later that, okay, it's going to be at the deadline. Then yesterday I kind of changed up that belief when I heard all the rumors about him. So I kind of believed, okay, it's changing up now, it's heating up again, and he's going to be traded in this offseason relatively soon. Again, I didn't think it would be like 4 hours after I said that. But hey, the Padres work fast and baseball works fast. So, good for the Padres. And great for me because I get to talk about some stuff now. Always happy with baseball news, especially in the off season when things are going slow. So yeah, I think the thing with the Padres is now, where does this take them as a team? Before this, they were definitely a fringe playoff team, a team with a lot of talent, but I don't think a lot of depth. I think a team that had a lot of woes in the pitching category. Now, obviously, that's changing now with Cease, but I think you have to think now, where are the Padres in the NL? And before this, frankly, I did not have them making the playoffs, and now I do. I think this makes them a playoff team. I really think it does. I think, personally right now, I think the top five, there's no way you get a top five seed. I think the top five seeds are done. I think 1 and 2 are going to be the Dodgers and Braves. 3 is going to be whoever wins the NL Central. Personally, for me, I have the Reds. And I think 4 and 5 are going to be the Diamondbacks and Phillies. And I think 6 can be a whole lot of teams that are in a group together of just being good but not great. I think that's the Padres. I think that's the Giants. I think that's the Mets. And I think that's the Cubs. I think those are really the 4 teams that are battling for one spot. And before this, I had the Mets as the best team in that group, with the Giants right behind them. And maybe that could have been some bias with me being a Mets fan. I don't really think so. I had my reasons, but I was going to explain them in my playoff predictions video. Obviously, I'm not going to do that for a little while now because I'm going to wait on some other moves to happen after this one. But the reason I think them getting Cease makes them a playoff team and gets them, in my opinion, will be the number 6 seed. For just my opinion, by the way, just like projecting into the season, is that pitching was their biggest weakness. And getting a guy like Cease, who is a certified ace, guy who's done it in his career, who knows how to do it, I think is a big deal. I mean, you have him now as the 1, probably Musgrove as the 2, Darvish as the 3, Michael King as the 4, and then one of the younger guys fights it out for 5, like Michael, with Randy Vasquez, Johnny Brito, Matt Waldron, who apparently has the inside edge, right? Inside into it right now to get the 5 spot. And I think getting Cease just makes your rotation so much better. It gives you so much more depth in case that Musgrove or Darvish does go down. Same with King, who's had some injury issues in the past, and this is going to be his first season as a full-time starting pitcher. I think this makes them just so much better, and I think this puts them above teams like the Giants, like the Mets, other teams in that kind of, like the Cubs as well. So, yeah, definitely, I think it definitely gets them above that. And I think it definitely makes them a playoff team as of right now. All things can change. I mean, some NL team could, sign Snell and, make themselves take into that what I believe is the 6th seed. But as of right now, I think the Padres have the inside track to getting it. I think the Cease trade helps them that much. I think he's that good of a pitcher. Yes, there are some regression issues with him you have to think about. I know a lot of people aren't as high on him because of the down season he's had the last year. But I still think he's a great pitcher. I still think he's a guy that's going to help the Padres a lot. And, I mean, this is just great asset management by AJ Preller. Trading Soto and then using one of the assets you got for Soto, arguably the biggest one, to get a superstar pitcher is just incredible. I mean, if we're counting this as a 3-team trade, really, the Padres gave Juan Soto and Trent Grisham and got back Dylan Cease and a bunch of prospects. Like, that's a great trade for me. That's a great trade, in my opinion, for one season of Juan Soto and 2-3 years of Trent Grisham, who's a fine player. Like, that's a great trade, in my opinion. And I think it's great asset management by AJ Preller, and I criticize him a lot when I'm talking about baseball, but I think it's a good job by him, and I think the Padres really did well with this. Now, the only problem is, you are giving up a lot. I'm going to talk about these guys in the White Sox part of the segment right after this, but you are giving up a lot with these guys. I think they're really good. And I think it weakens your farm system a little bit. But, I mean, they've made so many blockbuster trades over the past few years with their own prospects that they know how to develop them. So no matter how hard they try, as I believe Foolish Baseball said, they're always going to have top prospects, always guys to trade. So I think that's one of their strong suits of the organization and something that's going to keep going when they want to make these big trades in the future. So, I love the trade for the Padres. I think it makes them a playoff team as of right now. I think it gets them just a smidge ahead of the other guys in that group of what I would consider good, not great teams in the Mets, the Padres, the Giants, and the Cubs. But also I have the Reds there, but I think the Reds are going to win the Central, so they would have the 3 seed already. So you get the idea. We've talked a lot about the Padres side of this deal. I think it's time to talk about the White Sox part. So obviously, the White Sox are giving up a great player in Dylan Cease. I mean, a guy who can be an ace in this league, a guy who's shown it. 2 years of control as well, so they were going to get a lot. And I think looking at this package, I'm a little tiny, just a tiny bit underwhelmed because of what they were asking for. We hear about the Yankees, they wanted Spencer Jones or Chase Hampton or someone like that. And instead, they get actually a former Yankees prospect, ironically. But still, just, I don't know. For me, I don't think they got the superstar guy they were looking for. I just think they got three really good prospects, I should say. So first one we're going to go off with is Samuel Zavala, a left-handed outfielder. He is only 18 years old. He's crushed it at A-ball so far in his career. I've seen some reports on him that he's a lot of traits, a lot of tools as a guy who can be a real impact player in this league for a long time in the future. I think that was a great job by the White Sox seeing this guy who has a lot of potential and is still young, so can be carved out a little bit in his future. They can kind of make him their own, and there's a lot of traits there, just a lot of raw ability. And I think getting a young guy like that who's 18, who's shown a lot of success at the minor league levels, even if it is A-ball, I think at 18 years old, that's a pretty great deal. So I like this move. I like this part of the trade for the White Sox. I think he's going to be a really good player. I think he has a lot of great raw tools, raw traits. And if I was a White Sox fan, I'd be excited for this guy to man your center field position for a long time after he comes up. I'm not sure if he classifies as a center fielder long term, but as of right now, I think that's where he's going to be. Next, we are going to talk about Jairo Yarte, one of the three pitchers they got in this deal. From what I've seen of him, he has great raw stuff, great fastball, great slider. He hasn't had great results so far, but I think results are kind of something you put aside when going into the minor leagues and just seeing what stuff someone has, because results don't really matter. They only really matter when you get up to the big leagues, in my opinion. If he has great stuff, I think that's really all that matters, and I think the White Sox are seizing on that right here. I saw a lot of Padres fans mad they gave this guy up, so I'm thinking it's a good move for the White Sox if they were mad. So I think he has a lot of great stuff. I think if he can put it all together, maybe get a third pitch, maybe work on his control a tiny bit, and just put it all together and kind of be a full pitcher, kind of be a guy that can, be really, really big for impact in the future for the White Sox. I think this would be a great move for them. And I really, really love it. I think it's another great move by the White Sox to get someone for Cease, who is obviously going to get a lot. Next, they acquired Steven Wilson, who is kind of the least valuable part of this trade. Just a fine reliever with some control from the Padres. Guys at a 3 ERA both the seasons. I think this is a guy the White Sox maybe like to be in their bullpen long term, or a guy they see fit to flip at the deadline. Nice reliever with control if they see it that way. I guess the Padres saw him as expendable because he is a reliever. So I think that makes sense for both sides, for the Padres to give him up, for the White Sox to acquire him. So just another good player that the Padres got in this deal, and a guy I like. Now we're going to talk about I'd say the centerpiece of this trade for the White Sox, and that is getting Drew Thorpe. A lot of you guys are probably familiar with Drew Thorpe, as he was the guy in the Juan Soto trade, one of the big parts of the trade for the Yankees, and the Padres getting him as well. This is a guy who is great in Double A in his career, has a lot of great stuff, has been a top 100 prospect consistently over the past few months or so now with his emergence, and was sought after by the Padres heavily in the Soto trade for a reason. This guy's really, really good. I would say he's the centerpiece of this deal of this package for the White Sox. And I think it's really exciting that they got him. If you're a White Sox fan, you should be very excited. It's surprising that the Padres already traded him if they were so high on him, but I guess that shows how much they wanted Cease. So just going over the White Sox package, I think they did really well. I think they got three really good players. And one guy who's, just a regular reliever. Not much to say after that. But I think they did really good. I think what you can criticize them on them is maybe not getting that huge guy that you thought they would get. I mean, Drew Thorpe is a really good player. But I kind of thought maybe they would get one more bigger piece. And, instead of three really good pieces, I kind of thought they would get maybe one elite piece and two other okay guys. But I understand if they want a quality over quantity, which is totally understandable. I trust what Chris Getz is doing there over in the South Side. I've liked what he's done so far in his small time as White Sox general manager. So I think the White Sox did well in this trade. I think the Padres did well in this trade. I think it's a pretty good trade for both sides. I think it's really a win-win. White Sox got a good package back for their pitcher that they were going to trade. Padres got an ace-level pitcher to help with their team now. and show that they're not rebuilding even after trading Soto and Grisham. Definitely, I think a good trade for both sides, and something I'm going to be watching the results of in the future. So, that's our first segment here, talking about the blockbuster trade for Dylan Cease. We're going to move on to our second segment here, which is going to be talking about the Devin Williams injury to the Brewers and how it will affect them. But before we do that, I'm going to go to a break, and then we'll talk about it after. So, see you after the break. Thanks.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign.
I wanna be the greatest. Everybody on their fake shit. I look around and feel like everybody is the fakest. I make this every day and I'm impatient, hoping one day I blow up from the basement. Statement, the top is so vacant. I don't hear shit that I think is amazing. Waiting for my day when I'm playing sold out shows where 1,000 faces. Hey, give me that crown, get in my way and to be put down. It ain't your place, all this my town. If I want that shit, then I'll get it right now. I'm losing it, the noose it fits. I'm losing shit, a stupid myth. You choose to live or choose to dip. You choose to fight or lose your grip and lose a gift.
I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind? Please, Lord, give me a sign, a sign. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Is everybody in the world blind?
All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our second segment. But before we do that, I would ask you again to please like and follow the show. Donate if you can, gsmcpodcast.net. It really does help me. Really does help everyone here at the show, at the network as well. So thank you so much for that. And let's get into our second segment here. So the second segment we will be talking about is Devin Williams and the news that broke that he is injured and is going to miss, most likely, as what they put it, 3 months of the season. That is give or take. It could be more, it could be less. We're not really sure, but we think that's what it's going to be around. Obviously, Jeff Passan said it, and I'd say he knows what he's talking about. The impact on the Brewers here, I'll tell you right now, it's not good. It's not good to lose one of your better players, lose a guy like Devin Williams who, has really grown into that closer's role, was one of the better setup men in the league when the Brewers did have Josh Hader before they traded him. And I think he, once they traded Hader to San Diego, I think that's kind of been the way for Devin Williams to come back here and kind of not come back, but kind of show what he's made of, kind of show himself as a guy who is a closer in this league, is one of the top closers in this league, and I think he's done really well in that role. Now, I don't think it's horrible for the Brewers. Again, losing your star closer is never good, and I think also going off that is the trade part of it. A lot of rumors were swirling around that Devin Williams would be traded at the deadline, or maybe even in the offseason, or even in the season if it came to that, with the Brewers kind of rebuilding. They traded Mark Canha. They didn't really do much this offseason. They traded Corbin Burns as well, of course. So Brandon Woodruff's going to be out most of the year. So I think it was kind of a writing on the wall that, okay, we might be rebuilding. And that's what set off trade rumors for Devin Williams, for Willy Adames. And I think the big impact on the Brewers here, just off, we're going to talk about on the field after, of course, but off the field, I think they were looking to trade him. And I think he would have been a great piece for any team to add at the trade deadline with a year and a half control at the deadline. A guy who is shown to be one of the best closers in this league, has one of the best pitches in this league, if not the best, with his airbender changeup. And I think getting a really great prospect package back for a guy like Devin Williams would have been a great thing, and something that would have really helped the franchise out in this time period with them. So I think it affects them that way because they were probably looking to get some prospects off of Devin Williams, being such a good player he is. But obviously, that's not going to happen, and he isn't going to be pitching for 3 months. We don't know what's going to happen when he returns. We don't know what the rehab's going to look like. We don't know if he's going to be on a pitch limit or something like that. So, definitely something to watch, see how he does come back from it. And, become Devin Williams again. So the injury is a stress fracture in his back. That's never good. Stress fractures are never good. Especially your back as a pitcher, you put a lot of momentum on your back with your pitching windup. So I think there is a possibility of a long-term injury here, like just kind of ailing him throughout his career. I think back injuries are really not good for athletes in general. Just today we saw Ben Simmons, who's a basketball player, obviously for the Brooklyn Nets. His career's kind of been shorthanded by his back injuries. He's had another season-ending back injury today, which we saw about with the Nets season-ending back injury. So I think it's definitely a negative here for Devin Williams, and definitely not something you look forward to as a Brewers fan. But I definitely don't think it's the end of the world for you guys. I, again, wasn't predicting to be that good anyways. So it's not horrible. And also, it's a bullpen arm. And what we've seen at the past few years is that bullpen arms are replaceable. Just looking at their depth chart right now, they have a lot of good bullpen arms. So if you were going to lose any star on your team, I'd probably want it to be your closer, or a reliever in this case, because he's both a closer and a reliever. So, they have guys like Trevor McGill, Abner Uribe, who has great stuff, by the way. DL Hall, I don't think they'll be using him as a reliever, but if it does come to that, if he does flame out as a starter, I think that could be an option. Aaron Ashby, Hobie Milner, Joel Payampas, and Brian Hudson. These guys are all good relievers that could definitely fill in with the Devin Williams role. And I think one thing about smart organizations like this, like the Brewers, is that you can always find good relievers. You can always make some starter, some guy who kind of failed in his role, to be a good reliever. Relievers aren't that hard to find. So I think if you're going to lose anyone who's kind of notable on your team, you'd rather it be Devin Williams than a guy like William Contreras or Christian Yelich or a Willie Adames, someone like that, Sal Frelick. So it's not the end of the world for the Brewers, but again, I just think it's another thing that's showing me I don't think they're going to be very good. Overall, I'm not a fan of this team. Their ace right now is Freddie Peralta, who is a fine pitcher. I know a lot of people have him as a breakout candidate now, but I'm just not really buying into that yet. And after that, even if he does become a breakout candidate, let's say, you only really have Wade Miley after him, and then kind of some question marks. Guys like DL Hall, who I mentioned before, as someone you're going to rely on as a starting pitcher after trading Burns. Jacob Junis, Colin Ray, Robert Gasser, Joe Ross, Jansen Junk. These guys are not real starting pitchers, guys that you can fully rely on. So I wasn't really high on the Brewers anyways, and I think this just takes my my negative feelings on this team right now to a different aspect. So not a fan of the team right now, and this Devin Williams injury doesn't really help them. And again, I think the trade situation as well, I think they were probably going to trade him sooner rather than later anyways, but I think that does affect it. I think we're maybe looking at a next offseason trade candidate now. I don't think anyone's going to trade for him at the deadline after being hurt. So, that's something else to look at here. And now just going over where I think they could be for the NL and the NL Central. As of right now, I think they're probably going to finish in fourth in that division. Looking at the teams there, first you have the Reds, who, maybe I might be annoying about the Reds at this point, but I love this team. I think they're a really good young team. I think they're going to win the Central. I love all their young talent. I love their pitching that they added this offseason. So I think they are the number one team in the Central right now. And right behind them, I think, is the Cubs. I think the Cubs had a good, not great offseason, but still enough to get them to the second seed in the NL Central and be a team that is going to be competitive for the playoffs. So, I like what they did this offseason, and I have those as the two top teams right now in the Central. And above them as well, I also have the Cardinals. I think it's very close with them, but I think the Cardinals' hitting core and the sheer talent on that core is going to make them better. Again, they're pitching so many question marks. Sonny Gray, who's really good, but is going to be is probably not going to pitch on opening day. Miles Michaelis, who, I mean, fine. Lance Lynn, old. Kyle Gibson, old. I mean, Steven Matt's just been a disaster since coming over to St. Louis with that contract. So definitely a lot of question marks with the Cardinals. And you may say, okay, I understand they have a great hitting core, but their pitching is nothing. We saw this last year, and yes, they added to it, but it's not significant adds. We saw that their pitching was bad last year, and they finished, really low in that division. So how is this different from last year? And I would agree with you, but I would also say is how is the Brewers pitching any better? You have Freddie Peralta, Wade Miley, and that's kind of it for established guys. Do I think DL Hall is going to come on the scene right away and pitch to be a great pitcher? No, I think he'll be a fine pitcher. I think he'll be good in the future, but not this year. I don't know about Wade Miley. I don't know what's going to go on with his injury stuff. I don't know if his age is going to be a factor in this as well. So I'm not very high on the Brewers right now. I mean, I could even argue that they should be fifth behind the Pirates, who made some moves this offseason. We have a lot of young talent coming through the ranks. So I'm definitely not a fan of the Brewers where they are right now. I would have them as fourth in the NL Central. I had them as that before, so it wasn't like a crazy thing that I'm saying right now that they're fourth in the Central. But I think it just shows how far they've fallen off, considering they just won the Central this year. They did lose in two, but I mean they've made a lot of changes, specifically Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff being out the entire year. So. Not a fan of this Padres team. I mean, this Brewers team, sorry. Had Dylan Cease on the brain. And I'm definitely not high in them. And I think this Devin Williams injury is just another factor of this, because what we've known about the Brewers the past few years is, their hitting might be lacking, but their starting pitching is always going to be great, and their bullpen's always going to be great, with Devin Williams and Hader in the back. Well, you don't have Devin Williams now for a few months. You obviously don't have Josh Hader. Your pitching's depleted with both your ace guys that you've known for the past few years not being out there, not being with you. So I'm not very high on this Brewers team for this year. I think they have a nice future. I think you have building blocks there like Jackson Chourio, of course, Sal Frelick, William Contreras. Christian Yelich is always going to be there, of course. So I think there's a lot to look forward to in the future with this Brewers team. But right now, I'm just not a fan. And I don't think there's much that can do to change that. So definitely not high in them. Definitely not expecting them to make the playoffs. Again, fourth in the Central right now. Maybe even a top five bottom team in the NL. I mean, as right now, the teams I would only say are worse are probably the Marlins, the Nationals. I'd also say the Pirates, of course, are worse, and the Rockies, of course, are worse. But, I mean, that's really it. I mean, you can even argue the Marlins are better with their pitching. So, not a fan of the Brewers this year. Devin Williams' injury doesn't help. And, maybe I'll be proven wrong, and we'll see that they're not going into a rebuilding phase, and it's more of a retooling, and they're going to compete. But we'll see until then. And, that's my thoughts on the Brewers and the Devin Williams injury. So, that's our second segment here. We're going to go to our third segment, which is going to be about Adam Duvall and him heading back to Atlanta. But first, we're going to go to a break here before that, and we'll talk about it after that. So thanks. See you after that. Bye.
For the best and latest podcasts available anywhere, go to the podcast app on your cell phone and type in GSMC to access free content-rich podcasts on health and wellness, book reviews, sports, entertainment, relationships, social media, movies, technology, finance, and even weird news. Subscribe and download the GSMC Podcast Network's family of shows, available everywhere podcasts are found.
All right, we're back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our third segment, which is going to be about Adam Duvall heading back to the Atlanta Braves. So this is something I didn't really have on my radar at this point in the offseason. I didn't think the Braves would be adding much else. Alex Anthopoulos said a while ago that the only position player they really tried for, they got, and that was Jared Kelenic. So I kind of didn't think there would be any more moves. I thought there could potentially be another pitching move. I've said it a few times that I still think they need pitching, and I think a lot of their fans agree. So I think there could have been another move on the horizon there. But obviously it wasn't, and they're instead adding an outfielder, a guy they know really well, obviously, an Adam Duvall, guy who I believe this will be his third stint with the team, separate stint as well. So, yeah, definitely an interesting signing. At the start of the offseason, I did predict Duvall to go to the Braves. Obviously, I wasn't on this podcast then, so I don't have any proof of that, but I promise you I did. Yeah, I think it always made sense in that way because the Brewers have always had their eye on Duvall. Braves, sorry, not Brewers. The thing is that he's obviously been a player they've liked, considering they've acquired him and reacquired him a few times now. And he made sense with them needing some outfield help, specifically left field help. I kind of thought that was over with once they acquired Kelenic, who they said would be a starter. So, yeah, it was interesting. Obviously, what we know about the Braves the past few years is that we know nothing about the Braves in reality. They always keep everything real close to the chest. Never any leaks from that organization. Ever at all. Never no leaks. Never any leaks, I should say. Sorry. So, it was a surprise that Duvall went back to the Braves, but again, it really wasn't because we don't know anything about the Braves organization. I mean, they traded for Chris Sale without a peep, and that that's a huge trade. So, what we know about the deal right now is that it is 1 year, $3 million. Seems fair to me. And that the interesting part of it is that he will be platooning with Jared Kelenic. Now, that is really surprising to me, as I kind of thought Kelenic would be a full-time starter for them. I thought that was the reason they acquired him, that they thought he still had something left in the tank, and that they wanted to see what he had there, because, obviously Kelenic is a former top prospect. Real top, like a top 20 prospect with the Mets, with the Mariners, and just didn't work out. So I thought they would be giving him a full starting role, but apparently not. I assume Duvall will be hitting against lefties, as Duvall's a righty, Kelenic's a lefty. So Duvall of the past few years against lefties has been okay, to say the least. It's been really up and down. 2023 with the Red Sox, 91 WRC plus, which is 9 points, 9 below average, obviously, with WRC plus. 100 is average, so if you're 100 is league average no matter what. So if you're below 100, it's not good. Let's just say that's not average. Before that though, 130. After that, 61. Before that, 132. Then 178. Then 67. So I think it's really inconsistent with Duvall, and I think the Braves are maybe banking on him being back in Atlanta, kind of getting that consistency up again to hit lefties. He is a righty, so I think you have the matchup there as well. But I think it's really interesting that they don't even trust Kelenic enough to give him a full-time starting role, and they're platooning with Duvall. So yeah, that's interesting for me. The impact on the Braves for this deal, again, I don't think it's much. I just think it's a nice addition to your lineup. I think the Braves have already had a deep team. I mean, this lineup was insane already. I mean, Sean Murphy, Matt Olson, Ozzie Albies, Orlando Arcia, Austin Riley, Ronald Acuna Jr., Michael Harris. Now you have Jared Kelenic and Adam Duvall platooning. You also have Marcell Ozuna at DH, of course, as well. So I think they already had a deep lineup, already some guys that could be fighting for that fourth outfield spot, like a Forrest Wall maybe, who's had a nice spring for them. But obviously they disagreed, and they made Duvall a priority apparently, and signed him for a 1 year, $3 million contract. So again, just adding more depth to that lineup. I think really only the real weak spot of that lineup right now is shortstop and Orlando Arcia, but I think they could get some guys at the deadline to potentially improve that. Also, maybe even catcher's kind of a weak spot as well, potentially, with Sean Murphy kind of fading out in the second half of the year last year. So that was another thing you have to look at with this Braves team. But again, I think the Duvall addition is good. I like it a lot. I think it just brings some more depth, just more oomph to that lineup. I didn't trust Kelenic to be in a full-time starting role, and obviously they didn't as well. So, definitely definitely interesting that no team even trusts Jared Kelenic. Sorry about the mix-up of the words there. No team really even trusts Jared Kelenic. And they traded for him in a big trade. They said he was the one guy they wanted to get this offseason for a position player standpoint. And then they get a guy to basically replace him against lefties. So, and a guy who's not even known for being against lefties, just known as being a good player, not really known as a big platoon guy. So, yeah, I think it's a good move for the Braves, though. Again, just getting more depth in that lineup. Duvall has versatility as well. If you need him to play out the positions, he can. So, yeah, definitely something to see how it progresses. And, yeah, definitely I think a nice move for the Braves, kind of low risk, and another move I like for them. Braves outlook here, just a little bit about their team. I mean, I don't know what else to say about them. They're easily the top 2 team in the NL. I don't think anyone's debating that. It's them and the Dodgers. It has been for a while. Of course, they need to get it done in the postseason now, after being a great regular season for 3 straight years. But 2021 they obviously won the World Series. 2022, 2023 they got embarrassed in the playoffs. 2020 they also got embarrassed in the playoffs. So you can potentially look at 2021 as a fluke. I mean, it's a pretty great fluke considering they won the World Series and beat a dynasty in the Astros. So. Yeah, but they definitely need to get it done in the playoffs, even though they are going to be great. They're going to be, what I should say is they're going to be a great team in the regular season. That's not up for debate. I mean, everyone knows they're going to be a great team in the regular season. But the problem is now they have to get it done in the playoffs. They have to get it done when it matters. And that's what you really have to look for if you're a Braves fan. Does the regular season really mean a lot to the Braves? Yes and no. Yes, because they want to get 1 or 2 seeds so they don't have to play in the first round. But also no, because they're going to make the playoffs anyways. And that they're going to have a great team. But it doesn't matter because they haven't performed well in the playoffs the past few years. And I think just winning in the playoffs is all that matters. I think it's been their pitching that's really let them down. So nothing that a Duvall signing can particularly fix. I mean, Reynaldo Lopez, Chris Sale, good additions. But are they really going to put you past that echelon of beating teams in the playoffs with your pitching? So definitely something to watch here if you're a Braves fan. How much does the Duvall addition help them? And not only, going off of that, but also how does their pitching play this year in the regular season, and then seeing that in the playoffs, and how is that going to affect them? So definitely something to watch here, and to see what happens with the Braves and how their team performs overall. Now, another part of this Duvall deal I wanted to talk about, not Atlanta part, was that how does this affect the other teams that need free agents, not need outfielders, and how does this affect the outfielder free agents, because those tie in together, of course. So I think you first have a look at the team I've mentioned so much with free agent outfielders, and that is, of course, the Padres, who, I mean, they're in the news for other reasons today, believe me. But I think you still have to look at it this way. I mean, right now, they're starting left fielders, probably, Jurickson Profar, who's fine, but is he really who you want to start if you're trying to win the season? I mean, you acquired Cease, you're obviously trying to win. So I definitely think they could use an upgraded outfield, and I think Duvall is a guy I definitely looked at as that. I think Tommy Pham now is a guy you have to look for, a guy you know well, of course, being he played for your team for a few years. I think he might be more of a full-time DH because his fielding has kind of regressed as he's gotten older. That's kind of normal. I mean, he's an older guy. Not much of a surprise that he is going to regress in fielding and regress overall because he is older. But obviously, you have a history with him. You know about him. You know how to deal with him. He has a history with the fan base. That might be something challenging to work out. But I still think that Tommy Pham to the Padres is definitely something that we can look for right now, and definitely something that is possible. So I think looking at that, I mean, looking at it that way as well. Michael A. Taylor as well, someone that could be, a fit with the Padres. And other than that, I think we have to look at other free agent teams that might need an outfielder. I think they might be more willing to pay Pham and Taylor because Duvall came off the market. They have less options now. I think of teams potentially like the Mariners who may need another outfielder, someone of the short-term variety who can be a good player for them. I think of a few other teams as well. All teams really need more depth in their lineups. Some outfielders. I think the Rangers could use someone maybe. That's a possibility that they could get someone as well. There's a lot of other teams that could use players here. So I think Duvall and Michael A. Taylor, those are guys to watch now that Duvall has signed, see where they potentially could go. Definitely something to see here. That how will this Duvall signing affect the free agent outfielders, what their choices are, where they could go. Will teams be more committed to giving them the deals they want and kind of going for it? So definitely a storyline to watch here, and something I want to see as it goes on. But overall, I like this move for the Braves. I think it's an interesting fit, but Duvall's a good player, and the Braves know what they're doing. And I think Kelenic had some question marks, and you're kind of answering those questions now with platooning him. So overall, I think it's a good move by the Padres. By the Braves, sorry. Yeah, too much news about the Padres. Talking about them too much. That was our third segment here. We're going to move on to our fourth segment, which is what I usually do. News around the league. What's going on around the league. Some storylines that I want to talk about. So, that's what I'm going to talk about here. And we'll see you after the break and talk about it. Thanks. All right, we are back here on the GSMC Baseball Podcast, bringing you our fourth and final segment, which is going to be about news around the league, just some storylines I want to touch on, some things I wanted to talk about. Again, as I've talked about a lot, these are news stories that I thought were important, notable, but I couldn't really talk about for a full segment and weren't important enough for a full segment. So, definitely something I don't know what I'm talking about. Sorry. Definitely these news stories I want to talk about. And here we go. So the first story I wanted to touch upon here is Gerrit Cole. We've talked about Gerrit Cole so much over the past few days that I think we all know what we're talking about here. So the first one is the news here I'm talking about is that Gerrit Cole is seeing these elbow specialists in LA tonight, and we should get some news tonight after I think the Yankees are getting news tonight, but because of that, we should get news from them right after that pretty shortly, as this has been a very fluid situation with the Yankees, with leaks and all that as well. So, interested to see what the prognosis is for Gerrit Cole, what is going to happen with his arm, what ends up happening. I don't want to go too deep into this because we have talked about Cole so much the past few days, and I'm sure non-Yankees fans are tired of hearing about it. But just him being out for a significant amount of time would be pretty bad for the Yankees. Losing the best pitcher in baseball, I think that'd be bad for anyone. So, definitely something to watch here. What does happen with Cole tonight? If it is a big news story, if something big does happen, we'll obviously talk about it tomorrow. But so hopefully getting Cole news tonight. We'll get a prognosis, see what all the fuss has been about the past few days, and overall what is going to happen with him, and how bad should the Yankee fans be worried. Speaking of the Yankees, John Heyman tweeted that Michael Lorenzen, free agent starting pitcher, of course, has been linked to the Yankees in the past few days. Sorry for moving a little bit. Sitting in a chair for 45 minutes, you got to get a little anxious. So, but keeping going here. With Michael Lorenzen, the Yankees have been mentioned as a potential suitor for his services. I think this makes a lot of sense, actually. Lorenzen is a fine pitcher, a guy who would slot into the middle rotation, no problem. Throw some quality innings. Not a great pitcher, but a guy who eats innings, isn't going to do too much. Isn't going to be horrible, but it's going to be okay. That's really all you want from him. Was pretty good with the Tigers. Got traded to the Phillies. Didn't do great there, but did throw a no-hitter. So I guess that counts for something, right? But I think he would make sense for the Yankees if they do lose Cole for a significant amount of time. A low-risk guy in Lorenzen, you put into the middle rotation on a 1 to 2 year deal. Bring some more depth there. You have a lot of injury risk in that rotation. I think bringing in a guy like Lorenzen, who is not a sure thing, I would say, but a depth guy, a guy who can solidify that rotation, I think would be a good move for them. And something that I would be looking forward to if I was a Yankees fan. I think he's a fine pitcher. And I think it would be a good move if the Yankees were to do it. So definitely something to watch. And seeing if the Yankees can get it done with Lorenzen. We've heard about Lorenzen with the White Sox, of course. We talked about that yesterday, that Ken Rosenthal said in his article, originally about the Cease rumors, not about the trade, which happened obviously a day later, that the White Sox were monitoring Lorenzen and in talks with him about being a replacement for Cease. So I think Lorenzen inevitably does end up going to the White Sox, just because they were in talks with him before the Cease trade as a potential replacement for Cease, and now that Cease is gone, I think he could fill in that spot in the rotation. I think the White Sox would be a good fit for him. Potentially try to have another nice season there. The White Sox flip him at the deadline, get some good prospects, and if not, you can keep him, try to rebuild his value for the next season. So I think Lorenzen's going to be somewhat interesting to watch as it goes on. Again, I think the Yankees and White Sox are kind of two fits here that make sense. I think he does go into the White Sox, but again, the Yankees do make sense because of the pitching injuries they do have. I also mentioned the Giants a few shows back, and I think that still makes sense. They have had a lot of pitching injuries, and a guy like Lorenzen filling in would be really nice, in my opinion, and something that would definitely be a positive to them and definitely help that rotation if they can't get a big guy like Snell and Montgomery. So I think Michael Lorenzen fits with a lot of teams. I mean, there's so many teams that always need pitching. I mean, other than what I've said, the Pirates, the Rangers, just so many other teams as well that need pitching. And I think Lorenzen could fit with a lot of teams, but the Yankees have been mentioning with him recently, so I want to talk about him, and the White Sox as well. So we have some Guardians news. Not often we get some Guardians news. They're kind of just there, if you're a Guardians fan, you kind of agree. Not a huge offseason for the Guardians, but we have some news about them. It's not good news, but we have news. So first, their setup man, Trevor Steven. He's going under Tommy John within the next 7 to 14 days. So obviously he's going to be out for a long time, probably a year and a half or so. A big blow to the Guardians bullpen, I'd say. I think Steven has been a guy that's been reliable in that bullpen for a few years now. A guy who's had some good stats, some good pitches. So definitely a blow to the Guardians bullpen and their pitching depth. But it's not a huge deal. Again, I've talked about it. Relievers are replaceable, especially middle relievers, guys like Steven. But still not great news. Also, talking about Daniel Espino. He is missing the entire 2024 season with an injury to his rotator cuff. Not good. Not good news if you're a pitcher. You get an injury to your rotator cuff. I'll say that. I know enough about baseball and medical stuff to know that's not good. Espino obviously was a top prospect with the Guardians a long time ago. Not a long time ago, a few years ago, I'd say. Kind of fizzled out with his performance, and then kind of dealt with injuries, as we're seeing now. Guardians were hoping that this year would finally be the year he takes the step. He takes a step up to where his potential could be, and kind of solidify himself as a guy who's going to be in their rotation for a long time. But obviously, he's getting injured, so it's not a help for them. And yeah, so not great for them. I think they were counting on Espino to maybe go back to the form they thought he could be in, and him getting hurt's not great for them. But again, he wasn't going to play a huge role, so it's not a big deal, but still not a positive thing for the Guardians. Starting pitcher Gavin Williams is also going on the injured list. He had some discomfort in his right elbow, and he'll be rehabbing, so he won't make opening day. Gavin Williams was a first-round pick from the Guardians a few years back, and a guy who made the rotation out of spring, most likely. Who would have I said before he got hurt? Now, obviously, he's going to be starting the year in the IL, which is not good for the Guardians because, as we've known the past few years, their hitting's never been that good, but they've always relied on their pitching. Their pitching's always been really good. So I think losing Gavin Williams is not a great start to that, trying to make the playoffs only with pitching. I didn't think the Guardians would be that good anyways this year, and I think these injuries kind of solidify that, especially the Gavin Williams one. I was really high on him. I think the Guardians know how to develop pitching a lot. So, not a great start for the Guardians season with all these injuries. Adding on, we even have one more that I got to talk about here. Sam Hensage's. He has some swelling in his finger. It's not a huge issue, but he may start the year on the injured list if it does continue. Just another part of that pitching problems with the Guardians, and not a great start to their year. I think the Gavin Williams injury really here is the big one. The one that I'd look for. I think this is the guy that they were planning on to be a big part of the rotation for this year and on. And him starting the season off with some discomfort and starting on the IL is not great. Obviously, it's not a huge deal, I would say. But at the same time, it's not something you want out of your young pitcher. So definitely something to monitor if you're a Guardians fan or a baseball fan in the future as the season goes on and as spring goes on. So, not great for the Guardians, and not a great start for them. The White Sox, they're moving Michael Kopech back to the bullpen. He was a starter in the later half of the year last year for the White Sox. It worked out pretty well with his ERA being good, but if you kind of look beyond that, he didn't really have the greatest underlying stats. There was kind of cause for regression there. I kind of thought that maybe he wasn't going to be a full-time starter and he wasn't really built for it. I agree with that personally. I always kind of thought he was a really good reliever in his career, and that's all he was really destined to be. Wasn't very high on him being a full-time starter. So, not huge news, but still something that is notable because he was trying to be a starter. I think he probably would have gotten an extended chance if he was good enough with the Cease trade now, but it looks like they're giving his reliever turning into a starter spot to Garrett Crochet. So we'll see if he can perform well. So I think Kopech can be a really good reliever, though. I'm pretty confident in that. This is a guy I think has a lot of great stuff. Just really, I don't think would ever put it together as a starting pitcher. So I think a guy that can be a really good closer for the White Sox in the future, and I'm really excited to see him in a role like that. Tommy Edman is officially starting opening day on the IL. Obviously, has had some fractures he's had to deal with. We've talked about him in the past. His injuries with his rib fractures. So, not great news for the White Sox. The White Sox, the Cardinals. But I think if any team can get past one of their everyday hitters being injured, it's the Cardinals. They have a lot of. We've talked about it so much here. They have a lot of great hitters. They have a great hitting core, and I don't think this Edman blow is a huge deal, but still something you may want to look at if you're a Cardinals fan, see how they respond after it. I don't know if they have any other players who can play center field at a high level, so that could tempt them to go after a guy like Michael A. Taylor, as some depth in center field, but I'm not sure. But I don't think it's a huge deal, and I think the Cardinals can bounce back from it. Again, they have the sheer amount of hitting depth they have in that organization is pretty incredible. So it's not a huge deal, and it's not something that's a huge blow to them, as it could have been for other teams. But still not great. Still not a great way to start the season off with this and the Sonny Gray injury. So So recapping a little bit, we should get Garrett Cole news tonight about the Yankees and his injuries. So we're hoping it's positive for Yankees fans. I think they'll be pretty sad if it's the worst case scenario here. So we're hoping it's good. Michael Lorenzen could be a potential fit to replace him in the Yankees, as some rumors have persisted. Also, the White Sox are a possibility. I think the Giants and Pirates are, just from my personal opinion. So definitely watching where Lorenzen go in the upcoming days. Guardians pitchers, they've had a lot of injuries with these guys the past few days or so. So not a great start to the season for them. The White Sox moving Michael Kopech back to the bullpen. Not a surprise, but still a disappointment that he couldn't work out as a starter. And Tommy Edman opening the season on the IL for the Cardinals. So yeah, that is our show for today. That was segment 4. So thank you so much for watching. Thank you for liking, following, donating. Always remember to hit that subscribe to the network to not only get updates when I post content, but when all the other great content creators on this channel do. So thank you so much for that. And we'll see you tomorrow, and we'll see what baseball throws at us tomorrow. So thank you so much, and see you later. Goodbye.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great.